Rob Smith, East Haddam. The first comment I have is, doesn't require a response, but it's unfortunate the public cannot get good information out of the DEP representatives on this, whether it's from the Wildlife Division or other divisions, because the virtual gag order has been placed on them. I think it's very unfortunate that they're not allowed to give information pro or con on this for the public's use. We've talked about Mr. Rocco being a good citizen. When Mr. Rocco and his folk were developing the river house, they had some issues with states. So the way they resolved that when they were during construction and paving, they cut the lot off the state land, the gate on the state land, trespassed with all their vehicles and construction equipment, never got any permission, and when they were called on it, did not even apologize. Their response was, well, we had no place to park our equipment while we were paving. And then you brought up the issue with the tree cutting. The tree cutting was instigated by their people to improve the view from the river house. This tree cutting was not on their land, it was on state land. I do not, the taxpayers' land, I do not know of any other property in the state of Connecticut that's managed by the DEP where they have allowed private individuals to cut trees, whether they're invasive or not, for the benefit of the private entity, whether it was a business or home. And in fact, there is some question that maybe Mr. Rocco may have had issues where he cut years ago trees on Valley Railroad property to manage or maintain his river view. I'm not positive on that, but that's what I was told. So in this case, part of the agreement that was arrived at, and the wildlife people in forestry were not in favor of this, but for whatever reason it did happen. So the Rocco and the rest of his folk there came to an agreement with the DEP that they would remove the invasive species, mostly black locust. In the process, several other native trees were also cut. The trees were chipped. They were supposed to have come back in and sprayed the stumps so there'd be no re-sprouting. It took many tries and 2 years for that to occur. And then eventually, or actually when that was done, they were supposed to have planted the slope with native flowering trees and shrubs. That to date has not happened. And so it's been 4 years since this was initiated. Just for your information, that they have not met their obligations in this particular case with the state. A couple other things. He has talked about a train station. Is the Valley Railroad interested in a train station?
Valley Railroad is very interested in a train station.
The train station would be on the wrong side of the tracks, so how are they going to get the people over there? Are they going to move the train, or are they going to be having the people walk around the train? I think that that needs to be explored to in much more detail. Because the station should be on the opposite side so that people don't have to cross the tracks and or the train. Most railroads are very shy about having people walking back and forth around it, through in between the cars. You've talked about water supply. Are they looking to bring water supply from Chester? And if that is being investigated, does the water company there have the capacity to supply this area?
I have been in meetings with the water company and the town of Haddam, and the water company does have the supply to bring it.
Okay. Would the state be funding that?
2.1 million, that's part of it.
That's for the investigation?
No, that's to bring the water.
Okay. How much?
From Chester to Haddam.
What is the total cost of the project? Do we have any idea?
About, well, no I don't. It's been talked about in terms of $4 or $5 million. I don't know that for an answer.
Okay. So there would be a considerable expense that the taxpayers would have to, would be burdened with bringing water up there to address this issue.
Yes. There is a feeling in many circles that addressing this issue is long overdue.
Oh, absolutely,
20 years of pollution.
absolutely. There's no question.
It's 20 years too long.
You have mentioned that properties have been swapped. Could you possibly have your staff provide the Democratic Committee here with a list of properties that have been swapped?
Yep.
DEP properties, open space properties that have been swapped for commercial purposes.
I'll supply the list. I think you need to examine them, all the ones that Sharon just talked of now, to be sure that they weren't for commercial benefit in the end. You know, reading those things we wouldn't know, but yes, we'll supply them.
Yes, because I think your staff would be able to ascertain which of the properties were for commercial purposes.
I don't know that we would be able to determine that. I'm saying we'll supply a list of what was exchanged in the past.
Well, if we have the information, then people could research it and find out. This question may have come up, or they beat around the bush. What happens if Rocco and his folk cannot develop this for whatever reason? Would they have the option to sell it for profit at that point, or would it revert back to the state?
I can tell you that I have suggested to the River House that the next step for them is to have their attorneys sit down with DEP attorneys. They have promised any number of safeguards, and that should be in place before the exchange occurs. So that's pending.
Okay, will this be made available to the public, or be easily accessible by the public, whatever agreement's been determined, or is made?
The property?
Yes,
Yes.
I mean, if there's closed-door meetings going on regarding what happens when, if X happens and Y happens, or, you know, whatever, it would be nice for the public to know
The details.
the details.
Yes. I
Or
would
be
hope
able
so.
to get the details.
I would certainly hope so. And I know...
Sorry.
There have been many promises made in terms of access and conservation easements and all sorts of things. That's why I think it's necessary for the River House attorneys to meet with the DEP attorneys and know what they're talking about and get it spelled out.
Well, my
And then we
concern
would
is,
know.
obviously, if there's a gag order on the wildlife folk and the land acquisition folk on this particular property, that would continue through and there'd be difficulty getting the details.
There's no gag order on me.
Well, excellent, thank you. Thank you. And just to touch on the property that's 87 acres that's up in Digham. From what I understand, this is a defunct subdivision of which the vast majority of the acreage cannot be developed. If it cannot be developed, it is by default open space. So the state would be giving up property to purchase open space, which is for all practical purposes already open space. And the thing that concerns me is in this legislation, I believe this is still in the most recent, it talks about all or part of this property. So with the Walkley Heights Associates, would they have the option to, and probably this would be ascertained in the appraisal, but would they have the right to pull off what few lots they could, which would further devalue the rest of the open space parcel prior to the swap?
I would say they have the right to do that, but I would say if they did that, they wouldn't have matching value.
That would be true, I'm positive. All right, thank you.